before we got
Yeah.
out of the hotel, there was 2 or 3 people that just like kind of got in front of us, and it is absolutely crazy. It's like a rock star.
Yeah, it really is. And with that many young people liking it, it's going to be around for a very long time. It is
Right.
an instant icon.
Hey, y'all, it's Dr. Know It All. I am very fortunate tonight to be here with Lance King, who is the CEO of Cyberlandr. And for those of you who don't know, it's actually right behind you. It is a pop-up camper, an amazing little invention, a little in terms of size, but not in terms of stuff. We're going to talk about this more in just a moment. But Lance just got, how many weeks ago? 2 weeks ago or so, you got a Cybertruck, and you've put a couple thousand miles on it already. Yep.
It's actually been more than a month
Oh,
already.
month. Okay, well, there we go. And so we are going to do a Cybertruck review, both positive and negative, for people who are not necessarily Cybertruck people. So if you've never heard of a Cybertruck, just saw one driving down the road, and you're like, "What the heck is that?" Like I did just today coming back home, I was like, "Oh my goodness, there's a Cybertruck for the first time. First time I saw one in Georgia." So anyway, we're going to talk about all that stuff. We're going to go through a list of things. We will intercut this with some B-roll because I was very fortunate to be able to see you last Wednesday and actually do an on-site sort of review of the truck while we were there. So thank you so much for being here again with us, Lance. I really appreciate it.
My pleasure, John. It's always fun to spend some time with you. In fact,
Yeah.
I meant to tell you when you were here that one of our customers contacted me and said, I love you and John's videos. It's like your brothers. And I said, well, that's
Oh,
feels to us too.
there we go. It is. It is. We actually had a lovely dinner afterwards at the what was that? The diner bar in Austin.
Yeah,
So yeah, very cool.
very good.
Yeah, good dinner. So if you're in Austin and you want a nice dinner, there you go. The seafood restaurant. So yeah, so let's start. You can bring up your list and we'll kind of go
Okay.
off the list. And then I'm going to tease this right now that we will talk about the Cyberlandr somewhere in there. So you have to watch the video if you're interested in some updates on the Cyberlandr and how the Cyberlandr fits with the Cybertruck. Because, of course, one of the downsides of Tesla, we'll just start right off with that, is that they are terrible about giving out specs. You to buy the truck and get the truck before. I think it was actually one of your customers actually gave you the truck, right? Is that correct?
It was. Yeah, it's Rich and Leanne Call. They're fantastic. Rich said, Lance, I don't need a Cybertruck. I need a Cyberlandr. Take this and bring it back to me when there's a Cyberlandr.
So there we
And
go.
so his generosity is helping us bring it to market sooner.
There you go. Yeah. Because Tesla is not generous about all the specifications. So we didn't know what the specs were until you got to laser scan the bed. So yeah, so let's go ahead. Cybertruck review for non-Tesla owners. Let's start with world's only exotic truck. That is an interesting claim. So what do you mean by that?
Hey, well, let me just give you a quick background.
Oh,
I was
yes,
watching
sorry.
some of the
Number one was
reviews
your back down.
lately. Oh,
Yes, give us your
that's
background.
fine. I was watching some of the reviews lately, and I thought, these are completely out of context, and they're giving people bad impressions or incorrect impressions of Cybertruck. So I kind of wanted to set the record straight, talk about what makes it special and what makes it maybe not perfect, right? And so my background, my dad owned a car dealership for 35 years, car lot. And so at 10 years old, I started going to work with dad in the summers. And, I would do body and paint work, sanding cars till I had no fingerprints. I would detail cars, wash cars, do some light mechanical work. Sold my first car at 12 years old and have just absolutely loved cars since the time I was a kid, obviously. And so some people would say that Teslas are not a car for car people. And I would argue they haven't spent enough time with them yet because they have their own special magic that we'll get in a little bit more into here in a bit.
Right.
So world's only exotic truck. Cybertruck truly is an exotic from the way it looks to the way it drives to its performance. We haven't had an exotic truck since the Lamborghini LM02. I think that was in the 90s with its V12. And I'm pretty sure it wasn't anywhere near as nice to drive as this is. And, it used to be that with exotics, there was a big downside. It might have had great performance, but it was loud, it was hard to live with, it rode poorly. And the Cybertruck is just absolutely astounding. And so we'll just move into the Tesla experience.
Right.
Anybody who has a Tesla knows it's not just about the car, it's the whole experience. You don't have to go into a dealer. You don't have to haggle to get a good price. The price is the price. and
Right.
you can
So
buy it.
let me just stop on that because I think
Go
people
ahead.
don't believe this. I've talked to people who are not Tesla owners and I say that and they're like, "Oh yeah, yeah, yeah." But then they get you into the dealership and they start haggling. No, I mean you literally do it online. It says this is the price, 60,000, whatever the price is. That's the price. You work out the deal for either paying in cash or doing a finance thing or doing a lease or whatever it is. It's just done. You sign the documentation on your phone, you go into the dealership, they give you the car and you drive off. So there's none of that awful dealership experience. So yeah.
Right. And they worked really hard to streamline, simplify
Mhm.
that,
Mhm.
and take that gaminess out of it. And I really appreciate that. Is it perfect? Not yet.
No.
You still submit all your forms and everything online. That mostly goes smoothly,
Right.
but not perfectly so all the time. So, but they keep getting better at it. And that alone, I would avoid buying a new car just because, or a car at all, because I didn't want to
Right.
go through that hassle, right? And we
Oh yeah.
tried to remove that at my father's dealership, just by that's the price, let's not play games kind of a thing.
Right.
And it's nice to know that at Tesla you can do that. Uh, so
I think the fact that Tesla is always trying to improve the experience is also important. I think if you think about it, GM manufactures a Chevrolet, then that Chevrolet is sold to the dealership. The dealership sells it to you. Who is the person responsible for any kind of bad experience? You can always point the finger at somebody else. And Tesla, it's them end to end from
yeah,
the time you want to order it to the time you own it and you want something repaired on it. It's their responsibility. So they know who's at fault and they're constantly working to make it better. And I think it's important. That's part of the Tesla experience is the fact that they're trying. You feel an
yeah.
awful lot like with other automobile manufacturers and dealerships and stuff. They're not really trying. They're just like we're just milking the cow. So
And yeah, many promises not kept. I bought a new Cadillac many years ago, 2013, and they
right.
promised that it would have Apple CarPlay and automatic headlights as a software update before the year was out. Uh, I had that car for 3 years. It never got an update.
Right.
And so that's another part of the Tesla experience is you control most of everything in the car from the app. You
Right.
don't have to worry about keys. You walk up to the car, it sees the Bluetooth on your phone and unlocks the car for you. You get in, you don't have to push a start button. You just push on the brake, put it in gear, or in the case of their newest ones,
Right.
it figures out the gear you probably want to go in, or rather not a gear, but forward or reverse on its own. And all you have to do is apply the accelerator. And
Yeah.
so it's 1,000 little tiny things that make that experience so good, which is
Yeah.
what I liked about my Cadillacs and BMWs and Porsches before that is they had lots of refinement. They put a lot of effort into improving things. And one of the ones I pointed out to you on the Cybertruck the other day
Hmm.
is when you open the door to the Cybertruck, the window comes up just a little bit. And then when you close it, it goes back down. And the
Right.
reason for that is so that the window won't rattle because it's unsupported when it's all the way down. So
Right.
every other car that has a frameless window, when you close the
Goes
window rattles
like
if the
that. Yeah.
window's but not in the Cybertruck. So there are thousands of little things like that. And we'll get into that a little bit more with the Tesla Phil in the next part. But the
Right.
experience doesn't end there. It's the first software-defined car from end to end. And what I mean by that is from the purchase through the sale of the vehicle and everything in between is really software defined.
Right.
And we're getting used to that in all of our other devices. It's nice to see that come to the automobile.
Yeah.
And
And if you're worried about it, if you can operate one of these guys, you can operate a Tesla. It's basically like having a smartphone.
if
It's a
not
yeah.
even easier.
Yeah, even easier.
uh,
Honestly, that's true.
and I think people underestimate the value of those over-the-air updates on a regular basis. A lot of cars I've had, by the time they're a year old, you're already getting tired of them. The newness
Right.
is
Right.
worn off, and you're thinking, okay, I can't get out of these problems. It's not going to improve until I get a new one.
Right.
And the Teslas are amazing because they're constantly improving.
Yeah.
And once in a while, they take a little step back.
Right, right. They do. They do. And without even talking about Tesla full self-driving and everything, which is a huge update every time you get it. Just recently, the software update with the new sort of look of the vehicle it was a huge improvement. Now, that doesn't matter, but but it was beautiful. And I
Oh,
was like, wow, it looks great.
it- yeah, it does matter. One reviewer said it's boring,
Yeah.
and I disagree.
Yeah.
I think it's clean, uncluttered, and simple.
Right.
And some people will complain, well, I want a binnacle. I want that dash in front of me to look at
Right.
this. I want these physical buttons. And I think the first couple of times you drive it, you feel that way. And then you see the brilliance in what they've done.
Right.
Instead of looking to this mirror, that mirror, this mirror, to the controls over here for the lights, the controls over here for the HVAC, this one over here for the radio, and over here, you go
Right.
to one place every time and you know it's there. And the most important features have buttons in the steering wheel that can be accessed by voice anyway.
Right.
So it's really much simpler and easier than people think.
Yeah.
And you really end up enjoying that as you get used to the car. But there is a little bit of a learning curve, but you're
Right.
through it very quickly.
Yes, yes. And of course, regenerative braking and stuff like that if you haven't driven an EV before. But if you've driven a stick shift, I would warrant that you have a good feel for it because it feels like downshifting in a stick shift. It's like that, coming off of it. And it's a really good feel. I rented a gas car to go um, to Austin because it was just last minute, didn't have a chance to get a Tesla. And woof, the experience. You really notice when you go backwards. It's like it feels like stepping
You
back, 20 years in time to drive a gas car. Almost drove it right off the road because I forgot to turn it off because it's like, oh gosh, you have to put it in park, turn it off. It doesn't do it for you automatically. So yeah. So the Tesla feel. What about that?
So the Tesla field, for probably 30 years, my goal was to get a mid-engine Ferrari someday. And what I loved about them is the super low latency. They're so responsive. When you press on the brake, you immediately get braking. When you turn the steering, it immediately responds.
Right.
When you press on the accelerator, it just goes.
Right.
And so, and I've even driven a 458 Italia on the racetrack
Ooh,
and
all
had all
right.
four wheels, smoking when we got out, all four tires. And it was awesome, had a great time. And so I was very surprised on the second day of my Model 3 performance to catch myself saying out loud, spontaneously, I no longer want a Ferrari.
Oh, jeez. That's
And it's like,
perfect.
wow,
Yeah,
cross that off and save 200 grand in the process.
exactly.
And the reason for that was 70 milliseconds of latency.
Hmm.
So one of the things people don't understand is so much of what you enjoy in a car is the responsiveness, that
Right.
it does what you ask it to do when you ask it to do it.
Right.
And at 70 milliseconds of latency, it's as though your car is hardwired into your brain.
Yeah.
But you get used to that, you no longer have to push on the brake and the gas at the same time to load up the torque converter so you can take off quickly if there are cars coming, which most people
Right.
never do, but car guys do, right?
Right.
And you don't have to think going into a corner, okay, when do I turn because I have to make up for the slop in the steering or something like that. And so it's
Right.
enormously satisfying. And so people who are used to loud noises and being hit over the head to enjoy the car by sound or smell or whatever else, it takes a while to recalibrate when you
Right.
get into a Tesla. And once you recalibrate and you dial it down a couple of notches, you'll hear those little motor noises
Oh
and
yeah.
you'll appreciate those every bit as much as a gas engine. And what you'll really appreciate is being able to hear the tire grip
Yes.
or what's going
Yes.
on outside. And, it's a different experience, but it's a fantastic experience.
Yeah.
So, for many years, they've talked about how Jaguars have grace and pace, you know,
Right.
a nicely
Right.
controlled car and they
Right.
have good performance. And I would say in more modern times, Cadillac has taken that to the next level with even better handling, even better ride.
Right. Right.
But then you get to Tesla, and what I call theirs is rhythm and flow. The Tesla has a
Just
rhythm and
great.
flow that is unequaled by any car ever. And I don't know how they ever will equal it because of that super low latency. Uh, you can see gaps in cars and just flow through them. You're
Right.
not waiting for a downshift. You're not waiting for a turbo to spin up. You're not waiting for the engine to restart after you came to a stop at the stoplight.
Right.
All
Right.
those annoying things that people somehow convince themselves are okay
Yeah.
that really aren't go away. And you become much more man and machine with this, and it's more satisfying because you get what you ask for every time. And
Right.
so people who think they're car people and haven't spent enough time with a Tesla owe it to themselves to do that. And unfortunately, that's not true of all electric cars, but it is true of
No,
Tesla.
no, it is.
And
And I'll go you one further. I actually just posted
good.
yesterday a video. We got a chance because Tesla, the company, brought two Model 3 Performance, the new ones, the Highlands. Oh, me and Lars from Best in Tesla, and then poor Lane was in the back seat hating on life because, of course, we were just little boys going like, whoa, spinning. But that sucker was on rails. But also, if you put it in track mode, you can get it. It will fishtail, so you get a nice feel of racetrack, but it never loses control. It's like it's there and it's giving you that feel, but it's not like, it's not like the classic Elon Musk story where he took the McLaren out, said to Peter Thiel, I think it was, watch this, spun it and just flipped the car. So it's always like you got that right on the edge and you're riding it, but man, the hardware and the software technicians at Tesla are just amazing. I mean, the thing was, it just felt like it was on rails when it was in regular mode. And as soon as you put it on track mode, it was giving you that slip start and everything. And the brakes are, anyway, it's, whew.
And,
I mean, I've been driving Teslas for a long time and I was still like, woo, it's crazy.
yeah, and I think that's the mark of a really well-made and well-engineered car, is that
Yeah,
it makes you feel like a pro, not a fool. And
exactly. Yes.
I had a BMW back in the day, a 330xi that I loved, and it performed great, 6-speed manual. Liked it
Mhm.
so much, I got an M3 convertible. And that car made me feel like a fool on a regular basis because it had great
Jeez.
steering, brakes, and acceleration, but the three never came together in a harmonious way.
Oh,
And so
yeah,
you had to work so hard to get it to do what you wanted it to do. So I
right,
replaced that with the Porsche Boxster. And
right,
that thing was magic, even though it was gutless by comparison with much less horsepower,
right.
everything came together. And that's what Tesla does. Everything comes together. You can tell
Yeah,
it's a car built by one team, not a whole bunch of teams that did their part and then put
right.
it together.
And
And
and and as opposed to gas cars, at least traditionally, it's much more of a software defined experience. Obviously, the hardware has to be there, but the software, these guys are really good at designing software to get just the perfect amount out of these cars.
yeah, and that's why it's so hard for everybody else, because Tesla writes all their own code. It's
Right.
all their system. Volkswagen had 30 different vendors writing code for their cars.
Hmm.
How do
Hmm.
you get that to be a seamless experience with low latency?
Right.
It's virtually impossible. And so people should not underestimate the Tesla field.
Right.
It is very addictive and very satisfying.
I mean, that's the reason why we keep buying them.
Yeah.
We're like,
Yeah, and
more, give me
people
more.
say, why are Tesla owners so loyal? It's like
Yeah.
experience it for a while and then try
Right.
to go back to something else.
Mhm. I think honestly that's the important test is people say, cult, whatever, like there was
Yeah.
like the cult of Elon. It's like, no, these cars are that good.
Yeah.
And drive it for a few weeks, just rent one on Turo or something, drive it for a few weeks, and then go back and drive your gas car. And then tell me if you don't really, really, really want the Tesla.
Yeah. Like you said, it feels like you went back in time.
Yeah.
It makes everything else feel like a Neanderthal. And interestingly
Right.
enough, the Cybertruck makes the other Teslas feel old-fashioned.
Right.
And so while we're talking Tesla feel, I'm actually going to jump down to the number 5 variable ratio adaptive four-wheel
Hmm.
steer-by-wire. Now that's a
Absolutely.
mouthful,
Yeah.
but every piece of that is relevant. The variable ratio, the adaptive, the
Well,
four-wheel steer-by-wire.
for people who don't know, since we're pitching this towards people who might not know Teslas and Cybertrucks, every car, well, like, there's a couple of exceptions, weird exceptions, but pretty much every car has two-wheel steering and it's linkage. It's like you turn the steering wheel, there's a big long shaft that looks like it's about to kill you if you got in an accident that goes down to a gearing ratio system that then it spins the gears, the tires move, all of that kind of stuff. So that's what traditionally happens. So the steer by wire, it just means there is no connection. You turn the wheel and it's like a game controller basically. It's like sending a signal to the motors to turn the wheels.
Yeah,
Yeah.
much like all planes, all
Yes.
airliners are fly-by-wire now and have been for decades. So it's a proven technology, nothing to worry about. But it brings some conveniences that people don't realize. So instead of going hand over hand, so you go into the parking lot in your typical truck or car, and you do hand over hand to turn to get into your parking place and
Right.
get adjusted. And with the Cybertruck, it's never more than that, right? And so it's quick and easy, and you get used to it surprisingly quickly. I thought it would be difficult to get used to, but
Right.
you get used to it very quickly. Humans are very adaptable. And then once you get used to it, it makes every other car feel old-fashioned. It's like, why are they doing that goofy hand-over-hand stuff?
Right.
And so that makes that squircle, they call it, the squared off circle for the steering wheel, actually fit for purpose. It's very comfortable, it works very well, and you're not going to want to replace it. It's the right tool for the job.
Right.
And
Right.
so I think people will really like that much more than they know. And it transforms that big truck into something that is so maneuverable, so easy to move around. In fact, I tell people it makes it feel like every other car you've ever driven is dragging its butt around a corner.
Right.
And
Right.
because it's nice to finally have the front of the car and the rear of the car coordinated in the way they've always intended to be
Right.
coordinated. And backing into a garage or something is so easy. And that's another thing of the Tesla feel is the precision with which you can drive it.
Right.
I like the BMW, you could place it very easily. The mirrors were very good. And then the Tesla, you can creep an inch or a fraction of an inch if you want to. I put the Cybertruck in the garage every night. It clears by about 5 or 6 inches front and rear. That's not a very big gap, right?
Right.
And so I'm shooting it into the garage. I go watch left and right, front and rear, and get it just right every time. And it's easy
Right.
because there's so much precision. You're not trying to make up for a sloppy torque converter or brakes that
Yeah.
don't respond when you push on them. And so it's very satisfying.
And of
Uh,
course, the software is beautiful too, because you get a top-down view as you pull into the garage, which tells you where everything is. So you can just sort of guide it in there and say, like, okay, that's the spot it needs to be.
yep.
Yeah, it's really amazing. And of course, the variable ratio is very important too. So the front wheels turn more heavily when you're at low speed, so that you don't have to do the hand over hand, and the rear wheels as well. But they go opposite when you're low speed, so you can make very quick turns. And then as you go to higher speeds, the front tires and the rear tires go the same direction, so you kind of glide across lanes, and the ratio goes way, way down. So as you're turning the wheel, you have to turn it more to get the same amount of turn, so that you don't have this jerkiness where the little tiny flick of the wrist and you're like off the on the other side of the road. So it's pretty amazing, and it is pretty magical to drive the vehicle like that.
It really is. And I should pull up that little graphic I sent you earlier today.
Oh yeah, for sure.
I can find it. If you've got it handy, you can pop it up.
I probably don't have it right in front of me, but I can look
Here
if
we
you.
go.
Okay.
I've got it. Let me pull it up.
All right.
Uh, if it'll let me share it, let's
I
see.
think you have to quit sharing and then share again. Yeah, there we go. And we are going to get to Cyberlandr in just a minute.
We are. So
Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah. This is
I love this.
great. This is great.
This guy said, I'm not a greenie, don't believe in changing everything to electric immediately, so figured I would see what all the hype was about. Rented one of these ugly, boxy, stupid looking piles of nuts and bolts that it's harder to clean than my old Sub-Zero fridge. 2 hours later, I put down a deposit on one. And they're worthy of the hype.
Yeah,
It is the untruck. It's unlike anything you've ever driven to have something that big, be that capable, that comfortable, that easy to maneuver, that satisfying to drive on a long trip or even a short trip.
right,
My first car was a truck and I loved it. And mine was a Chevy Cheyenne short bed, not an extra cab. So it was pretty easy to get around in. The
right,
bigger trucks are hard. You try and put them in parking places or take them through town. You think, if I've got a smaller car, I'll drive it. But
right.
you don't have that feeling with the Cybertruck. You just hop in it like you would any other car and zip around.
Yeah.
And
We
so,
got variable ride height, so you can get in at a low height and then it'll raise up if you wanted to. You can go off-roading with it. I think it's also like my experience of it is it feels like a very, very, very sporty SUV, which is shocking because
mhm,
my son has a Chevy Silverado, and that thing's just like a bucket of bolts. It's rattly. The steering wheel just does this when you're driving. It'll get you from place to place, and it's really great because you can throw crap in the back, but it's oh man, it's not fun to drive. And the Cybertruck is basically the same size and a blast to drive. It
Yeah.
really feels like just it's on rails. It's incredible.
Yeah, people really owe it to themselves to test drive a Cybertruck
Right.
and really see what it's like, because it is the first time we've been able to truly combine a luxury car, a sporty car, an SUV because of the covered locked storage at the back
Yes.
with a pickup truck all in one vehicle.
Right. And an
So you don't
off-road
need,
vehicle. And an off-road
yeah,
vehicle.
and an
Yeah.
off-road vehicle.
It's
And
great.
I mean, how many times you've been able to get into a serious off-roading vehicle and not climb up the side of it with a ladder or a step
Right.
rail or something like that. So it's a magical combination of things that has never existed before, which is why I call it an exotic truck.
Yeah, it is. It's very much that way. So let's talk about Cybertruck as a platform, which will then lead us
Okay.
into the Cyberlandr. I think that's the perfect segue here. So yeah.
Okay. So every truck really is a platform, and it defines what you can do with it because of its capability. Now, interestingly, Ford, Chevy, Ram have done a great job of subdividing and subdividing their subdivided categories to where they have 4 dozen or better models of trucks. And the problem with that is they do the one thing very well, but they're not as good at a lot of other things. For example, if you wanted an electric pickup from Ford, you can buy that in the Lightning, but they don't have an off-road version yet. They're
Right.
talking about having an off-road version, but if you wanted to use one for a pickup camper, that's not okay. You're not supposed to put a pickup camper in the back of the Ford Lightning. So you end up buying a Raptor for your off-road, a regular F-150 for your pickup camper, and then a Lightning for your electric around town one to be better for the environment and to save some money on gas. You shouldn't have to buy 3 trucks. You ought to be
Right.
able to buy just one. And Cybertruck lets you do that. It has that broad range instead of the very narrow focus. It does so many things so well that Tesla's able to have 2 models instead of 40. And I think that's remarkable. I think it's brilliant, and I think it has fantastic benefits to the end
Right.
user.
And
So
and also, I mean, you've got 240 outlet in the back. You've got a couple of 120s in the back. You've got a bunch. It's very, very well thought out in terms of the
mount
oh gosh,
points,
what's it? Mount points? Yeah, I was
okay.
trying to think what's the name of that thing with the little holes in the side that
Yeah.
goes down with the rings that you can move. I'm blanking on the name of that right now. But anyway, but yes, but I mean it's basically
Are you
flexible.
talking about the L channel?
Yes, thank you. That was
Yeah.
what I was trying to remember.
Mhm.
I was blanking. But I'm just saying, it's like it's got all that truck stuff. And people
Yeah.
are complaining about the fact that the front of it is too high to get stuff in. But let's remember, you can drop that thing down to like low mode and
So
it's very
that
low.
that makes me laugh every time somebody
Yeah,
says that. They say, "Well, it's not a truck because you can't reach in from the side." It's like,
right.
okay, if you looked at most of the trucks, most of them are so jacked up, unless you're 7 feet tall, you can't reach into the side anyway.
Right.
And even when you do, what you set in there shifted to the center,
Hmm.
okay? And then you go around to the back, and they say, "Well, the Cybertruck doesn't have the pro tailgate so that you
Right.
can spend your
Right.
time moving
Right.
out the stair and everything." It's like, well, it doesn't need to. The suspension drops it down so that the height of the tailgate is about the same as the first step on those pro tailgates.
Right.
And my sister has an F-150 Tremor. She absolutely loves it. It's got the
Right.
pro tailgate, and she says, I never use it. I just do the very unladylike thing and put my knee up on it and get myself in.
Right.
And I
Right.
said, why don't you use it? She said, it's just a hassle. It's just
Right.
easy if you're flexible to get in. And so I think people would be surprised how easy it is to get in and out of the bed since it drops so low when it stops.
Right.
Uh, and the tonneau cover, I think every truck's going to have an easy to use, secure tonneau cover in the future because it just transforms the truck. It makes it so much more usable. You don't have things being sucked out by the wind. They're not
Right.
getting dirty sitting in the back. They're not getting stolen.
Right.
I think it's going to be a must-have feature for future trucks, as long as you can do as good a job as Tesla in getting it out of the way when it's not needed.
Right. I got to watch at the factory tour. I got to watch them installing it, and it is pretty amazing. The unit that they have, it's just a pre-built thing, and they just have a robot that goes zounk, it just sticks it in there.
Mhm.
So, I think the tonneau cover, I think that is underappreciated
I
because
think so
it
too.
really does transform it into an SUV. It's like an SUV with 5 seats, really big seats, and then all of that storage space. You know, you've got a
Yeah.
6 foot storage space in the back. That's very impressive. So yeah,
Okay.
it's a platform, and let's remember, I mean, this is like, you know, the Cybertruck right now is like the iPhone 1 as opposed to the iPhone,
Mhm.
whatever this is, 15, I think.
Right.
You know, so this is the beginning of a platform. It'll just get better and better. And that's a perfect segue. Let's talk about Cyberlander. So
Okay,
yeah,
let's talk about Cyberlandr. So,
stop sharing
it,
for a sec so we can see it better in the
okay,
background.
so
Yeah,
it's a perfect platform for adding things. I think the
right.
best thing you can add to a Cybertruck, obviously, is Cyberlandr because I'm biased.
There you go.
Never before in history we've been able to have our home, our living room, kitchen, bedroom, bathroom, and office with us anywhere and everywhere we go, still fit in a normal garage, still fit in a single parking space, do it without being hard on the environment.
Right.
And I think that's magical. And that's why we have
Yeah.
thousands of people waiting for us to get their Cyberlanders done.
Yeah.
And we're working as fast as we can. You got to see the latest
I
version
did.
because you're under NDA. Unfortunately, we can't show it until we got our patents in place. But you're welcome to share your impressions. Have we made
It's
improvements?
yes, you've made improvements. I'm very impressed, and it is still tough as nails too. I mean, one thing could probably give away is I was beating on it with a sledgehammer, not a sledgehammer, a crowbar in
Crowbar.
this case. But yeah, but you know, I was hitting it hard, and Scott was there too, Scott Walter, and he was hitting it hard, and we couldn't do anything. We were scratching the paint off the crowbar, but that was about it. So yeah, very impressively tough. Uh, the new design I think is going to knock people's socks off. It's really hard not to be able to talk about it, but but it's going to be very impressive. You're going to be glad that you're not going to be glad you had to wait, but you're going to be glad at the results of waiting. I think it's going to be
It,
pretty
it
genius.
will be worth the wait.
Yeah,
We promised years ago when Tesla said Cybertruck's going to be a little later that we would use that time to make improvements,
right.
and I think you saw that we're doing that. I think they'll
Yes,
be pleased. Unfortunately, since we didn't get detailed specifications until March, it's going to take us a little while to get it out. Originally, we had planned to fabricate it like many RVs are. So you take off the
right,
shelf materials, you cut them, you bend them, you mold them, whatever, to be what you need. The new design really doesn't allow us to do that, to take
right.
advantage of the new slightly reduced Cybertruck size and yet have Cyberlandr become bigger. We had to completely re-engineer it. That means molds and dies, those have much longer lead times. And as you know,
Right.
we just barely got the Cybertruck so we could start to do the
Yeah.
fitment and all of that. And so it's coming, but I think people are going to be really, really pleased.
Yeah. And I think you didn't mention earlier, but this is also a software defined piece of kit. It doesn't look like that. It looks like a big chunk, but inside of it's all about the brains, the AI, the convenience that allows you. I think that's really important for people to know.
Yeah, and of course, our goal is to have that technology fade to the background so they don't even realize it's there, right?
Right.
Which I think Tesla does a very good job of most
Mhm.
of the time as well. And one good example of that that we've shared in the past is you go into Cyberlandr because you want to change into your swim trunks to go hop in the lake or something. You
Right.
don't want to
Right.
run around to 7 windows and draw
Yeah.
blinds.
Right.
So you just say, hey, Lander, give me some privacy. The windows go opaque, you change your clothes, the lights come up automatically, and then you can put it back to normal mode as you leave, and it will take care of it. So
Right.
we want that technology to fade to the background and just be there to support people and not get in the way.
Right. Which is very exciting. Do you we can keep talking about the Cyberlander, but I also think this is a good segue into some of the niggling problems with the Cybertruck because let's be honest about this, it's not perfect. It's a Gen 1 vehicle. So do you want to say more things about the Cyberlander first or kind of
Uh,
jump to
no, I think that's fine. We can make
okay,
that
cool.
transition,
We will have a whole once the patents are in place and stuff, we were going to do an exclusive reveal of the new design and everything. So
yeah,
definitely stay tuned for that one.
yep. We'll get back to it. We'll give people all those details they've been so patient waiting
Yeah.
for.
Yeah.
Uh, as we said, Cybertruck is not perfect,
Yeah.
uh, but I am absolutely blown away at how good it is.
Right.
The other manufacturers have had 100 years to make trucks. Tesla, this is their first truck to come
Right.
out the gate with something so good. I mean, think of Toyota 20 years
Yeah.
ago when they came out with the Tundra.
Yeah.
They'd already been making the Tacoma for a long time. and
Right.
they're still struggling to really do anything substantially better than anybody else. And Tesla
Right.
comes out the gate with something that is mind-blowing.
Yeah.
And is it perfect? No. They've had a few little issues, but I'm shocked how few issues they've had,
Right.
given that it's a completely new platform with completely new software, computers, 48-volt architecture,
Right.
variable ratio, four-wheel steering, all those things. It's incredible how few issues there have been. This one our customer loaned us, the fit and finish on it is fantastic.
Right.
Everything lined up perfectly. Uh, there was, they picked me up at the airport in Denver, and as we drove out, I heard a little rattle in
Mm.
the uh, headboard. And about 30 minutes outside of Denver, I hit a bump, a little screw came out, and no more rattle. I don't
So,
know what
well,
that
there
screw
you
was for, but I'm glad the rattle is gone. And
there you go.
uh,
Also so the whole truck is crazy. It's stainless steel, and all of the edges are hard edges without any fold over, which means any mistake is just screams at you.
yeah,
So it's incredible that they're able to do this at a mass scale. But the
yeah.
weird thing about it is, of course, the back on the top, the back two bars that come down on the tail on the bed, and then the
Mhm.
tailgate. Also, the top of that is you showed it to me. It's made with it's just like the most wussy plastic ever. You
Yeah.
can't even believe it.
All right, so
Yeah.
what happened here?
What we're finding is that the plastic on the top of the tailgate and the bed rails is very soft.
Right.
Unfortunately, it's not anywhere near the strength of the sheet molding
Right.
compound composite bed liner. And so we'd really love to see Tesla replace this. As you look up there, you can see it kind of warps. It's not super thick or
Yeah.
strong.
Yeah. And it's also just like, you know, kind of
it's-
wiggly and
it's a little
loose and
flimsy.
stuff. And there's
Yeah.
also right here as well, this part.
Yep.
So, and we were talking about that because you said that the rear camera gets anytime there's any hint
Anytime
of
you're
rain,
raining,
even
yeah,
if it
that-
decides to spit a little bit.
That
you can-
gets
yeah.
dirty really fast.
Right.
And the front one, not as much, but at least the front's got the washer.
Right. Very interesting.
Overall, the quality is amazing on this. And
Right.
that a company that's only been in business 20 years and this is their first truck
Yeah.
has in many ways shamed.
Right. And well, I mean, not to mention the
companies that
fact
built
that it's
trucks
just
for 100
completely
years is
differently
incredible.
built than anything else
Yeah.
either. So,
Yeah, talk about
Very cool
thinking
here.
differently.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Go Steve Jobs.
Yeah, so the bed itself is made of a
Right.
sheet molding
Yeah.
compound that's fiberglass reinforced, and it is tough as can be. It takes massive abuse. But the bed rails along the sides, those little plastic pieces in the top of the tailgate, is a very soft plastic. And I hope Tesla revises those soon to the
Yes.
same material that they used in the bed, because
Right.
it is way too easy to scratch up
Yeah.
and damage those bed rails.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, to the point that I could take my fingernail and make a scratch, and it's like, come on, man.
When it's hot, it's a really soft plastic.
Right.
And
Yeah.
then, the only real issue that this one I've got has had so far was the stainless steel that comes up over the top of the doors.
Right. If you look behind you, you can see it. It's that part that
Yes,
goes up where the door. Yeah, I know it's always hard to get those
right
directions.
there.
Yeah. The top
Uh,
triangle piece. Yeah.
Yeah, that was loose on one side at the front, and it was moving a little bit in a crosswind. And so I've got an appointment to get that in and get that fixed. Pretty minor thing. Um, and then, we're waiting on our Cyber Beast. It was due in
Right.
a week or two ago.
I know. I thought I was going to get to drive it.
Yeah, I was
I have to come
hoping to
back.
let you drive it when you were here. Yeah, come back.
Yeah.
I'll let you drive it. And it got delayed. We found out that the delay is because, according to Tesla, some VINs have had an issue with the wiper motor, and they're trying to address that as quickly as possible, get it fixed
Right.
before they send them out. And so we're waiting on that, but they've got it fixed now, and they're hoping we can pick up our Cyber Beast on Thursday. So hopefully we
Nice.
stay on schedule this time.
All right, that'd be good. And of course, if people don't know, the wiper, it is a singular wiper, and it is just ridiculous. It's almost comic large. It's the whole thing. It's like all the way up to the top, and then it sweeps down. And of course, the very top of the passenger side doesn't get wiped, but it doesn't really matter. I mean, I guess unless you're the passenger and it really bothers you or something, but
So yeah, there's a learning curve with anything. I thought maybe that wiper would be frustrating or maybe not perfect, you know, it's a non-issue. It works perfectly. I thought the big long
Cool.
windshield was going to be an issue. Not an issue. You just
Right.
get in, you're immediately comfortable with it. The things that have been the most difficult for me to get used to, and even then it only took a couple of days, was the turn signals not being on a stop,
Yeah,
but
I
being in the
know, I
steering
know.
wheel. And once I got used to it, I like it better,
Right.
but you have to get used to it. And then the most difficult thing to get used to was on my Model 3 and the other Teslas, the button to do the voice activated commands was the scroll wheel on the right-hand side.
Right.
That's now the cruise control and autopilot, and there's a separate dedicated button for the voice commands. And that has been the most difficult thing for me to get used to.
Yeah, I'm
Even
sure.
that hasn't been very frustrating. The most
Right.
frustrating thing on the entire Cybertruck has been Apple Music. And
So say we all. Doesn't seem to matter which Tesla you have. Yeah.
yeah, they really need to get their act together. It keeps shutting off. It turns off shuffle mode every time you get in and out of the vehicle. Apple used to be famous for their software, and they need to get back to doing good
Yeah.
software.
Yeah.
But if that's my biggest frustration, we're doing pretty good.
Yeah. Yeah. Which is actually a third-party app anyway. So there
Right.
you go.
So it's hard to blame
Yeah.
Tesla for that.
And you said that there is a theory that it actually has to do with Apple not wanting to allow too many people to share Apple Music, but of course,
Right.
the consequence of that is that every time, yeah, my wife loves Apple Music, and every time she gets in, it's like it pops up the QR code, says you have to reconnect, and it's just like it's so frustrating. So I gave up, and I just use my phone with Bluetooth,
Yeah.
but the sound quality is not as good. So it's like that's the sacrifice you make.
It is, and that's sad because the sound system,
Yeah.
number 8 on our list, is phenomenal.
Go
And
back to sharing. Let's talk about the sound
okay,
system as long as we're at it.
so the sound system is fantastic. I've heard many people say it's the best they've ever heard in any car. Um, I haven't heard any single sound system that was overall any better than it, but I've heard some that were a little better in areas.
Right.
My Model 3 Performance, the mid-range detail is slightly better to my ear. The bass, though, in the Cybertruck
Yeah.
is phenomenal.
Yeah.
It's got 2 subwoofers and it's killer. And the
Right.
sound from the back seat is by far the best I've ever heard in the back seat.
And I can attest to that. I was back there. I was like, this is very impressive. Usually the
Yeah,
back seat's kind of an afterthought, and it's kind
it's
of
a punishment box
yeah,
in
yeah,
most
exactly.
cars,
It's a punishment
including most Teslas. You know, the back seat's okay, but it's not fantastic. But
Yeah,
I'll tell you,
exactly.
it's the place to be in the Cybertruck. It is
Right.
nice back there.
Yeah,
And
and you get the full, I think the subwoofers are aimed at the glass ceiling too. So you get the full reflection off of that, and just a really, it's huge.
yeah,
Watch
and
watch Dolby Atmos clips on YouTube.
that's
If you have,
right.
even if you just get a chance to test drive it, just do that. Park it somewhere, and whoo, man.
Yeah, you will feel like you're in a theater. You know,
Yeah,
it
yeah,
has that kind of quality of the sound system. So that's fantastic. I think people will really enjoy that. And we kind of skipped. We talked about briefly the massively adjustable ride height.
yeah. We can talk
A
about
lot
that
of
again.
vehicles with adjustable ride height, it's a few inches. In
Right,
the case of Cybertruck, it's 8 to 10 inches, somewhere in that range. So it's dropping it down to 8 inches of ground clearance, which is good
right,
to get in and out, but that's like getting in and out of a crossover sport utility vehicle. So anybody can do it without running boards, right?
right, right,
And so that's super convenient. But then once you're going, it lifts itself up and you can get as much as 16 inches of ground clearance, and then even go into extract mode if you need more than that to get
right.
the tough position.
Yeah,
And to put that in perspective, that's significantly more than a Ford Raptor,
yeah.
16 inches. And I got our intern, our summer intern, who was with us last year, and he loved being abused, so he came back for some more abuse this year. And Travis is helping us put together a comparison of all the different, well, most of the different trucks. You know, like I say, Ford's got like 45 different F-150s.
Oh my
So
gosh.
we're doing about 6 of them that are worth comparing.
Right.
And also the Rivian and the Ram and the others, so that we can compare all of those. So if I look at this real quick.
Yeah. And
If I,
by the way, FYI, while you're looking for that,
Mhm.
another big advantage Tesla has is they don't go crazy chasing the 40 different models. So we don't have Cybertruck, Baja edition, Cybertruck, off-road edition, Cybertruck Super Raptor edition. It's they got two.
Yeah.
You get Beast so it's 2 motors or 3 motors. That's basically the difference. And they look the same. They mostly behave the same between the two. You do get that cool light bar over the top on the Beast mode, but yeah.
So the Raptor R shows 13.1 inches of ground clearance, and the Cybertruck has 16.
Yeah.
So to be able to go from something that's easy for somebody short to get in and out of to something that can off-road with that kind of ground clearance is fantastic.
Yeah. And
so
it does it automatically too. It's not like you have to like park the car, push the button, have it go down. It's like as soon as it parks, it goes into like get out mode, whatever, low mode. So yeah, it's very nice.
So let's jump down to number 9.
Yes.
Performance of the Cybertruck is incredible. And the Cyber Beast is otherworldly, truly. When you can outrun some brand new Lamborghinis or Ferraris, and you're doing it in a pickup truck that's economical, doesn't pollute, is capable off-road, smooth riding down the highway, has a phenomenal sound system. How do you beat that?
Yeah.
The Cybertruck is not cheap, but it's still coming in at half the price of a lot of those types of vehicles or less.
Absolutely.
And so that's why I think it's truly an exotic, but it's an everyday exotic. It's one that's easy to live with. So many exotics are full of drama, and people like the drama and don't mind the compromises. In fact, they like that they're hard to live with. They take pride in that. I don't. I want it to be easy to live with and perform like exotic.
I'm trying to find a Porsche 911 compare. Okay, so 0 to okay, so here's a 2022 Porsche 911 Turbo S. It has a 0 to 60 of 2.3 seconds. The Cyber Beast, I believe, has a 0 to 60 of 2.3 seconds. So
2.6.
2.6. Okay, so it's a little bit slower, but I mean, we're talking.
But that was the fastest Porsche 911, right? Not the standard. The standard one is closer to 4 seconds.
Yeah, that's a Turbo S, so that's a very expensive car, and it's this big. So you got a truck that almost accelerates as fast as that car, and it's a truck. So and if you really, really want to beat it, go ahead and buy a Model S Plaid, and then you can whip the pants off the 911. So
with your family inside,
and with your family, with 4 people, in the car with you. Yes, it's just nuts. So I think that's important for people to know is that again that just I think otherworldly is probably the way to put it. Maybe that's going to be like the title, otherworldly. But I feel like we've done. You had one of the things was like expectation versus experience. I feel like unfortunately people are going to say that we're just loving all over the Cybertruck and haven't said enough negative things, but it's kind of hard to come up with stuff.
There's your otherworldly.
There's your otherworldly. There we go. So we'll just do that. That will be the thumbnail, otherworldly. But I don't know. Is there other okay? Forget about comparing it to other trucks. What could Tesla do better with, Cybertruck Gen 2 or something? What if you could wave a magic wand?
Well, we've addressed 1 or 2 of them. The bed rail plastic material is not good, and my Model 3 when I first got it had some of the cheapest carpet in it I'd ever seen because batteries were expensive, right? And as the batteries came down, Tesla upgraded the carpet, and then they upgraded it again. And the carpet that was in it 5.5 years ago is still in it, and it's holding up remarkably well.
Right.
But it wasn't as plush as you'd expect out of most luxury cars that cost that much.
Yeah.
And so there are some compromises like that. I think Tesla's very aware of those. And as the cost of batteries comes down, they tend to upgrade those things to be more competitive.
Right.
So, other things will come to mind as we use it more. But I'm really shocked at how good it is out of the box. I mean, one of the things you notice is as you're backing off the accelerator and you go into the regenerative braking, it has more regenerative braking than the other Teslas, and that's good. But it's hitting too fast. It doesn't ease into it. And that's just a matter of their AI getting that worked out and then having time to upgrade it. So there are a lot of refinements that will make it even better.
Yeah. Speaking of which, full self-driving is not available yet because there haven't been enough on the road, so that's obvious. But that's coming. That 12
Right.
FSD
Yeah,
12.5 is coming.
and
So
you and I, with our background in AI,
yeah,
understood right off that
yeah,
that's
yeah,
it's not doable. You have to get a
right.
lot of miles in it,
Yeah,
right?
I would have won a lot of money. People were going to bet me a lot of money, and I said, I'm not betting you, but I'm going to be right, and I was right. So
Yeah.
I said July at the earliest, and it looks like I might be just bang on.
Well,
So
that's because you knew you would have to adjust for different camera resolution, for
yeah,
different positioning, for
right.
different wheelbase length, for four-wheel steering, for different
Yeah,
height. There are so many things that come into it. I mean, we've had our AI systems on highways gathering data, and
right.
it's the same basic model, but you have to tune it to each location because
Yeah,
the sun comes up in a different place, the camera's aimed at a different angle. All those things affect the quality of your results.
right.
And so it takes time.
Uh,
And so, yeah, hopefully next month,
right.
that'll be nice to have and right on your prediction.
Yeah, that's a little bit luck. I mean, but I'll still give myself a pat on the back. Uh, the other thing I would say, the big magic wand thing for me, and I know Elon's kind of poo-pooed it, but the range is not as good as when it was originally. The top model was supposed to be 500 miles. It's now 340 or 320 with the off-road tires. That's fine. It's like what the Model 3 is, or sorry, Model Y is. But if you're towing things or if you have something heavy in the bed, it's going to reduce your range, and so it's going to suck that you have to
Yeah.
charge more.
We really need, not just want, we really need a Cybertruck with 450 to 500 miles of
Yeah,
range
yeah,
for those. Now, long distance towing of heavy loads is a 1 to maybe 3% use case scenario. It's
exactly,
very, very few people who ever do that.
exactly.
And for people who only do that once or twice a year, don't hesitate. Get it.
Yeah,
It's going to be inconvenient that once or twice a year, but you're going to be enjoying it so much the rest of the year. You're going to be saving so much on
right,
fuel costs that, for that very small use case, don't let it stop you. But if you are
right,
towing uh, long distances regularly, it's just not going to make sense for some
right,
time.
right,
But Lars has said their goal is still 500 miles of range. They're still working towards that. They've got their new cathode factory going in here,
right,
and I think they'll hit it eventually, but it's probably a couple years away. So my solution for that was to just order another one.
right. I just have to have another one on order. Yeah. So, the other thing is that if you really are desperate about that, you can order the extra battery that sticks into the back of the truck, and I think it extends to
Range
450.
extender.
Yeah, the range. Now, I don't personally think that's a great solution. Number one, engineering wise, no. But number two,
Yeah.
it's expensive. So, it's one of those, if that is you and you're going to do it a lot, then yeah, this might not be the truck for you. But that's just not that many people that's
Oh,
your goal.
that's probably the most embarrassing piece of engineering I've ever seen from Tesla.
Yeah,
Because
exactly.
you make the truck basically useless for anything except towing a trailer.
Right.
And so that was disappointing, but I
Yeah.
almost wonder if they put that in as a placeholder to see what percentage of people actually needed that extra range and would pay for it.
Well, yeah, yeah,
And
yeah.
if they are, then maybe they come out with a higher energy density 4680 and they do a pack swap. So then you're not adding weight and you're not giving up cargo capacity or
Right,
cargo space. And
right.
I'm hoping that's what they're doing, but we'll find
Yeah,
out.
we will. And again, if you're, this should only be long distance towing that people should be concerned. If you have a business and you've got a bunch of yard equipment on the back that you tow in a trailer and you're just driving around town, fine, no problem. It's
No
only
issue.
if you're, I don't know, it's a very limited use case because you drive a semi truck normally, but it's like you're towing a trailer all over the place.
Even if you're in the trades and you're towing a large trailer to the job site, most people aren't going 100 miles from their job site,
No, exactly.
right?
Yeah,
And so it's not an issue for most people in most situations. Like when you take the boat to the lake, you're
yeah,
usually not driving great distances
right.
to the lake.
Yeah,
Uh, you want to spend your time on the lake, not getting there.
right.
So
And
not
then
an
you just
issue.
have yourself your Cyberlandr because you drive a couple hours to the lake, put the boat in, you got your Cyberlandr there, change clothes in there, get in the boat, go you do your thing, spend the night in the Cyberlandr, next day tool around, then you drive home. So it's perfect. So yeah.
Yep, get a nice shower before you go to bed and everything, and
Yeah. So
get
you're not
that
feeling
lake
all
water off.
spongy from it being in the lake. Yeah, that's true. And so yeah, it's it's a very, very small sliver. If you are for some reason, I don't know, if you're doing like demolition derby or something and you have to drive a couple of cars in a trailer from state to state every day, then yeah, this is probably not it yet. You need that 500-mile range, but otherwise it's going to serve perfectly well.
Yeah, and I think people will be surprised how usable it is. I
Yeah,
had one person on social media say, "Well, how is Cyberlandr going to work if there's only a 300-mile range?" It's like very
right.
easily, perfectly. It's
Yeah,
all the more reason to get a Cyberlandr instead of a trailer because
yeah,
we have a single-digit reduction in your range, not
right.
a 50%
Well,
reduction in your
and also
range.
let's not forget the supercharging thing. Like it's the truck, so you just pull in
Yeah.
as if you're the truck. You don't have to worry
Yep.
about a gooseneck and like how like
Yep.
how the hell are you gonna back into this thing with a trailer? And yeah, so that's really
Hitching and
good.
unhitching every time you need
Yeah,
to,
yeah,
and you're going to go twice as long between
yeah.
supercharging, right? And it's going to cost you about half as much. So it's all the more reason to get a Cyberlander
Yeah.
and have that flexibility and off-road ability that you really can't get out of a trailer.
Right.
So
Yeah, what kind of a dream is that to off-road to some meadow in the middle of nowhere and then actually be able to spend the night there because you got your Cyberlander in the back? That's pretty cool. So I think the last thing you had on the list was security, right? And I think it's worth.
security and then concept versus
Oh yeah,
execution.
yeah, yeah, yeah. So let's talk about security first. So security, I don't think people necessarily think about this, but these vehicles are they're really hard to steal. And also the tonneau cover on the back of the Cybertruck, of course, means that as opposed to, again, my son's truck is Silverado, he has like a just like a roll-up one, but it's just Velcro. So you just,
Yeah.
if you want to steal something, roll it up and go in
Or
and
cut
grab it
right through it
or
or
cut through
whatever
it.
else.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's not secure. You can't leave anything valuable in there. But this tonneau cover, you can jump on it if you want to. Um,
Yeah, and beyond that, people say, "Well, I don't need a bullet-resistant vehicle." That's true. You probably don't in most
right,
places. Some of the inner
right.
cities you might, but you probably don't. But look at how hard that makes it to break into.
Yeah.
You've got no door handle, you've got no lock cylinder to pick.
Basically bulletproof glass. I mean, it's bullet
Um,
resistant, but
Well, I don't know if the glass is technically bullet resistant, but it's
right,
it's shatter resistant,
right.
and
So I'm
we
just saying
see
it take a
that
lot to get through it to even
it
get
would.
inside the car.
Yeah, we
Yeah,
saw the one in San Francisco where somebody was wailing on it with a crowbar and never got through it.
right,
And so it's nice to have something that's that secure, but the security goes beyond even the bullet
right.
resistance and the shatterproofness.
Yeah,
You've got the cameras that are always on, that are
right.
recording. And
And you can get a live view on your phone too. It'll
yeah,
alert you and say, "Hey,
mhm,
look what's going on." And of
yeah,
course, even if you break in all of that stuff, unless you have a key, you're not going anywhere.
yeah.
It's no way you can't jack the ignition or something like that. It's like there's nothing to be done. You're just going to sit there.
And even if you did, you could track where it was and
Yeah,
Tesla
that's
would
true.
know where it's supercharged. So
Yeah,
uh, it's just security at another level than
yeah,
we've seen in the past.
yeah.
And then concept versus
Yes,
execute.
yes,
Uh, on that, what I wanted to talk about was what you can and cannot fix, right?
right,
If you get the concept right, you can do over-the-air updates or make little improvements along the way relatively easily and inexpensively.
right.
And I think Tesla nailed the concept. And it's such a different concept. I think a lot of people are having trouble wrapping their brains around it initially. But I think as they do, they'll go, this is brilliant. It crosses over from truck to
Yeah,
SUV, does both jobs very well. It's also a luxury car. It's also a sporty SUV. It's also economical in that it's rated better gas mileage equivalent than a Toyota Prius.
right.
When have you ever been able to
Which is
say that about something that was as fast as an exotic car or as
right.
useful as a pickup
Or
truck,
weight
right?
6,500 pounds. So yeah,
Or yeah, 6,600 to 6,900 pounds, right?
yeah,
And so, you know, there are a few little execution things that I'm sure they will improve over time, but they're relatively minor because they got the concept right. The
hmm
four-wheel steering was absolutely killer. It was never promised, and they delivered it.
right,
Uh,
right.
the tonneau cover works fantastically, and it's just a great experience overall. Uh, Others, I don't think, got the concept as well. Rivian's a super nice truck, very luxurious, a much
Right.
fancier interior, but it's a mid-sized truck. It's just a
Yeah.
little bit smaller in that 4.5-foot bed you cannot make up for.
Yeah.
We can't put a Cyberlander in that if we want to. It's just too
Right.
small.
Right.
Most people are more than 4.5 feet tall. And
Right.
so
So that's
putting a bed inside of a pickup camper in a bed that's only 4.5 feet long, a truck bed that's only 4.5 feet long, is a big challenge even for guys like us that like a big challenge.
right.
And
Right.
you can't fix that with an over-the-air update. You can't add four-wheel steering through an over-the-air update. You can't add a 48-volt architecture with an over-the-air update,
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
And so they got the concept right, they got the execution amazingly well, and they built a platform that can go for a very long time into the future.
Right.
And my guess is they'll keep it running for a very long time with very minimal changes to the actual architecture or look of it, because I think it's iconic enough. And one good example of that, when I left Denver, I was headed back to Texas, and I thought I'm going to stop by and see a friend that lives outside of Denver. Been meaning to stop in for a long time. Pulled in, his wife and their high school age son came out and
Right.
thought Cybertruck was super cool. He said, I just feel so bad that my junior high age son doesn't get to see this.
Oh,
And I said, let's go pick him up.
right. Oh, that's
So
the best deal.
we went to the schools to pick him up. I had no idea what was about to happen. We pulled in and we got inundated by all the students. And I
Right.
thought, we're blocking traffic. Nobody can
Yeah.
get in and out of here. This is crazy. And here comes the security guard. And I thought, oh, here it goes. We're going to be in all kinds of trouble for messing up the flow, in this end,
Right.
out that end. And he came up and he said, hey, can I get a selfie?
Yeah, exactly. So I remember
So,
just when you came to pick us up at the hotel, before we got
yeah.
out of the hotel, there was 2 or 3 people that just like kind of got in front of us, and it is absolutely crazy. It's like a rock star.
Yeah, it really is. And with that many young people liking it, it's going to be around for a very long time. It is
Right.
an instant icon.
Yeah, I think Elon said it at the shareholder meeting. He said judge the quality of something by how kids react to it. Probably even younger
Yeah.
than junior high, but like a 6 or 7 year old. They don't
Mhm.
care. They're not trying to impress
Right.
anybody. They'll tell you exactly what they feel, and if they like it, it's probably going to stick around for a while.
Okay, since you brought that up, I went over to some friend's house in Austin,
Mhm.
and they didn't know I had the Cybertruck. Knocked on the door, and their 5-year-old daughter answers the door and says, "Dad, somebody's here with a fancy car." I said, "What makes you think that's a fancy car?" She said, "I can tell a fancy car when I see it."
So there you go.
She spent the next 20 minutes in the back watching YouTubes on the screen,
Oh, there
and
you go. Right, and a
been
rear
talking
screen
about it
too,
ever
which is
since.
great. Yeah.
Yeah.
If you have a family, that's an awesome little feature that's like the kids can watch, and they can also have their own air conditioner control and all sorts of stuff in the back. So
Their
it's really nice.
own music with their own
Yeah.
headsets,
Yep.
and yeah, it's a great family vehicle.
Right. And for me, living in Georgia, and for you in Austin, I'm sure too, the ventilated front seats, very, very nice. They're cooled. So
Absolute heaven.
yeah. Yeah,
You
I
cool
know.
down twice as fast with ventilated seats.
I go back to like my Model Y, which is a lovely car, and I'm always like,
Yeah.
oh, where are my ventilated seats? My back is sweating.
I try to remember to get the car cooled down before I get to it,
Right,
but
right.
when I don't, those ventilated seats are especially appreciated.
Yep. It's great stuff. All right. Anything else? I think we've covered a lot. And again, for the folks
Yeah.
that are here for the Cyberlandr, there's going to be a lot more really cool stuff coming soon. It's going to blow your mind. I think just like the Cybertruck is super iconic, what you guys have done with the Cyberlandr is I actually have a hard time believing you were able to come up with it, honestly, because it was so difficult and so many adjustments and everything, mentally and engineering wise. So I'm super impressed, and it's going to be amazing. So yeah, we're going to continue the journey with you. And
Yeah, we think the Cyberlandr is justification enough for a Cybertruck.
yeah, exactly, exactly.
It's two great products coming together very synergistically.
Yeah, and I think you call it a lifestyle vehicle, right? The Cybertruck's a lifestyle vehicle, and
It
now
really
you're
is.
you're
Yeah,
making it
yeah,
doing
it's not a camper. People can use it for camping,
right.
but a majority of our customers say, "Oh, we're going to use it a lot more than that. We're going to use
Yeah.
it when we go to the park, when we go to the soccer tournament, when we go
Hmm.
to the tailgate party, when we go
Right.
out for dinner and they're full up, so we can't do anything. Get takeout. We get our takeout and eat it in the back
That's
of the
right.
Cyberlandr, so it doesn't get cold on the way home." And
Exactly.
So there are
And-
lots of
yeah.
ways to use it.
And I would say, like, for the real work people or something, this is a perfect office for the construction site or something. You redo it a little bit. Honestly, you wouldn't even have to do very much. Just,
Yeah.
but bring your laptop and you've got air conditioning, you've got a fridge, you've got a bed if you want to take a nap, a shower, you can.
Internet connectivity and
That's
yeah, we
right.
had one of our customers in California say, anytime the traffic slows down, I'm getting off, parking, getting my work done, and getting back on when it
All right.
clears.
Yeah, there you go. So stop wasting time in traffic. You can just get
Yeah.
off and do your work there. So, yeah. Or watch a good movie on the TV. So, yeah.
Right.
It'll be awesome.
Something on 4K.
Yep. It'll be great. All right. Thank you so much, Lance. I
Hey,
really appreciate this.
thank you, John.
This will
Great
be
to
the
see you
first of
again.
many. Yep. You too. All right. Peace, everybody. Have a great day. Bye-bye.